Hey, what's going on, guys? This is RJ Game News USA here, and today we're going to talk about Thunderbolts. We're going to look at a couple YouTube review reactions, just a little bit, and we're going to try to decide, is this movie good or bad? This is a little different than what we usually do. Usually either I review the movie directly if I see it, or if I don't see it, we usually go off of what the reviewers are saying on Rotten Tomatoes. But today I wanted to switch it up and make it more interesting. So if you like this kind of content, please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. And let's jump into it. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to listen to a little bit of Cody Leech talk about the movie. And then we're also going to listen to Geeks and Gamers talk about the movie. And they're claiming it's woke. But we'll see what Cody has to say first.
It is the closing film to Phase 5, and this is essentially your grounded little ragtag group type of movie, similar to Guardians of the Galaxy, even more similar to Suicide Squad, where we have a lot of side characters from various projects, Black Widow, Ant-Man and the Wasp, you also have Falcon and the Winter Soldier, a number of others all coming together for a little D-team team-up movie. And the basic plot of this film is that you've got Yelena, you've got John Walker, you have Ghost, Taskmaster, who are all various people working like Black Ops missions for Valentina DeFontaine. And
okay, so right off the bat, already, when you tell me this is like the D-team, that already gives me concern. Because I would like the A-team. But that doesn't necessarily mean the movie's bad, but we'll see.
And through a circumstance, they realize that they have been betrayed by her. And so, reluctantly, they team up together. Eventually, Bucky Barnes and Red Guardian and a guy named Bob comes into the mix as they team up and try to figure out what the hell Valentina is up to and eventually team up against an even greater threat. And I think it's important to state where I am as a fan of the MCU. Now, I'm somebody who loved this universe from the beginning. Of course, we had our mediocre and even bad films back in the day. Every single phase has had...
So yeah, I am not much of an MCU guy, I'm gonna be honest. So this guy probably, Cody Leech, he probably is more of a fan of the MCU and more familiar with it.
They're low points, but for the most part, there was a really nice consistency of quality from Marvel for the first 3 phases, and I think that pretty much dropped off of a cliff the last couple of phases, both with just lower quality movie projects as well as overexposure with the Disney Plus stuff, and
yes,
that wasn't very big quality. So I have absolutely lost a lot of interest. I've lost a lot of faith. I still go to the theater to see every single one of these movies, and I still have faith that hopefully
Ooh, brother, I would not, for every single one of these movies, no fucking way. You gotta pick and choose what you want to see. I love Deadpool and Wolverine.
I have a good time, and even ones that get lambasted like the most recent Captain America, I had a little bit better time with that than most. So I am still a bit forgiving, but I described it in my out of the theater reaction as I'm kind of just going through the motions at this point. Like, I'm not walking into a Marvel film pumped. I'm not walking in excited unless it's a big event film like Spider-Man.
I don't like that. Dude, I know you watch a lot of movies, but if you're going to see a movie, you should be excited going in. What do we do? I understand it's your job to review movies, and reviewing movies is not a huge part of this channel. But God, man, go in with a little excitement.
Away Home or Deadpool and Wolverine, which are kind of in a category by themselves. But Thunderbolts is one that I have had a little bit of interest and faith in because it does feel like it's a bit more back to basics. It doesn't feel like this weird multiverse story. It doesn't feel like it has the weight of the universe on its shoulders. It doesn't feel like something that needs to tie together 17 different plot lines to make any sense. And so I walked in with a bit of optimism, but also a bit of hope that after some of the universe feeling like it's starting to pull itself back together in Brave New World, maybe Thunderbolts is going to be the first genuine step towards feeling like we're starting to get the old MCU back. And starting right away with my positives, I do think that Thunderbolts is that first step. I don't think it's a gigantic leap forward. I think there's a lot of hyperbole out there right now about this film. But it is a solid Marvel Studios film. It is a good time. I think that it...
Okay, all right. So far, he laid out a lot of groundwork for why he's been upset with the MCU, but he's still a fan. At the end of the day, he thinks this is a good movie.
Has a nice place in this universe as kind of standing out on its own, having its own style, its own feel, its own approach, while very much doing things to tie the greater universe together even further after Captain America Brave New World. And I think that this movie does a good job at furthering these character arcs. It does a good job at furthering the universe in a way that makes sense for these characters and sets us up in a place where we're yet again starting to build towards the future with a little bit more optimism, a little bit more faith, and more importantly, a little bit more excitement. At the end of the day, this is a very...
But that's also really weird that this is the end of Phase 4. I mean, usually when it comes to whether it's sports or wrestling, the end of the year or the end of the phase, the season, whatever you call it, is usually supposed to be your big blow-off. You know what I mean? The way Cody's describing Thunderbolts is it sounds like the beginning. Thunderbolts almost sounds like it should have been the beginning of Phase 5, if anything.
Importantly, a little bit more excitement. At the end of the day, this is a very small-scale film in the grander universe of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There's nothing cosmic going on. There's not entire cities.
Is it funny?
From aliens.
That's what I want to know.
Trying to bring Avengers characters in for cameos or side character roles. This is probably the most focused movie as far as being a bit more of a standalone since something like Shang-Chi, and even that had a lot of other greater universe things going on. So I like the fact that we get to spend some time with some of these smaller scale characters and be a little bit more of a character study in that. It's not so much about the cosmic action. It's not so much about the big, huge Marvel Cinematic Universe scale and stakes. It's about these characters, how the...
Hold up a minute. Hold up a second. Don't you watch a movie like Thunderbolts or a superhero movie for those big over-the-top scenes? Am I mistaken here?
Previous stories that we've experienced have affected them, and what they need to move forward to be an actual significant piece in this greater story. Greater story. And it was an interesting surprise that this is a film that's ultimately about mental health. It's about exploring depression and past traumas and guilt and...
Oh, man. Now, the way he's describing the movie now, I do feel less interested. I don't want to watch a superhero movie to talk about mental health and depression. You're supposed to escape shit when you go to the theaters, man.
Regret and how people can find ways to move forward, mostly with the camaraderie with other people by opening up to other people and, sharing experiences with people that have the same types of traumas that you do. And so that was something that is a little bit more of a darker focus than you would expect from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is a lot more glossy more times than not. And these are an interesting set of characters to do that with, because as I said, they're the smaller characters. It's not like, Tony Stark having trauma in Iron Man 3 because he just went into a giant black hole into some cosmic space thing and fell back down. It's characters like Yelena who were raised in this situation where even as a child she was expected to do things that caused people's deaths. And all the way through her adolescence into her adulthood, she has caused a lot of deaths, both directly and inadvertently. The most weighing on her is the death of her sister, Black Widow. And so rather than just getting a lot of these different characters together as like the...
Oh god, her sister was Black Widow.
Like Suicide Squad, it's more of an exploration of how these characters are dealing with events of the past, how they're dealing with the world that they're in, and how, if at all, they're going to find a way to move forward. And even more so, the way that they tie that in with the main villain of the movie, Sentry, I thought that was really interesting as well. I don't want to talk too much about Sentry. I think that they've advertised it a lot, but at the same time, there's certain reveals that come along with that. But the way that grief and trauma is really like the overarching theme of what makes him a villain and what his villainous plan kind of works with, and how the team, the heroes, are going to battle against that. I thought the whole thing was kind of metaphoric in a way that was refreshing. Like, it wasn't so heady that it got a little bit too big, or it got a little bit too ambitious for what it was doing. It certainly was against the grain of not just having a slow.
All right, buddy.
It's more about an introspective battle.
All right, buddy. I think we're gonna see what. Actually, you know what? Let's skip forward to your negatives.
Of a lose ratio with me with their humor, where there's one or two really good jokes, but then there's like 7 or 8 that are just kind of throwaways, and I don't really find to be that funny, even though they keep trying. So for a movie that certainly has a group of characters where a little bit better of a comedy writer could have gotten a lot of really good stuff out of them, I thought the humor was a bit of a letdown.
Oh yeah, and okay, that seals the deal for me. The humor was a little bit of a letdown. Like, I was hoping if this movie was gonna exist, it'd at least be funny. He's not laughing. I probably won't laugh. You know, this whole letdown humor, you know, let's tell a joke, let's tell 7 or 8 jokes, and maybe you laugh at one. That's not gonna work for me, man. Like, the movie needed to be funny. It got a 90-something% of Rotten Tomatoes. People love it. You know what I mean? Critics love it. But sounds like Cody's got a different idea. So let's go to Geeks and Gamers. Let's see what they have to say. And we'll react to them.
It's a woke piece of trash, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh!
No, I don't actually think that. The headline is 100% meant to get those weirdos that like to screenshot titles and thumbnails and post them to Twitter so they can cry, and that's exactly what I'm hoping I will accomplish with that title and headline. But the reality of the situation is, I actually liked Thunderbolts. Now, I went into the...
We got swerved! Thunderbolts isn't actually woke! Geeks and Gamers clickbaited me! They clickbaited me!
With extremely low expectations, because I've been very checked out on Disney Marvel movies for a long time now, and I really don't have any hopes for them to be good. I have seen none of the Disney Plus shows. I think I've watched a couple of the first episodes to try to cover them, and they're so incredibly bad that I just check out so quickly that I can't even pretend to care. Even for the content. I just do not care. The last film that I remember watching from the Marvel Cinematic Universe outside of Deadpool, Wolverine, and Guardians 3 might be Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, which I absolutely hated. I might have saw the second Black Panther. I don't remember where that falls in the timeline. It doesn't really matter. The point being is that I went into Thunderbolts expecting more Marvel garbage, and I ended up enjoying this movie, shockingly enough.
I am stunned right now, guys. I am totally stunned. This guy he usually hates Disney. He usually hates Marvel. Usually with Jeremy at Geeks and Gamers, he thinks that shit is all just woke garbage, but actually, it sounds like he likes it.
Sentry was absolutely fantastic in the movie. I thought that Red Guardian and Bucky were just great. Like I said, this, whatever his name is, the Captain America guy, John Walker, I think. The reason I don't know anything about him is because I didn't see Black Captain America. I didn't watch the Black Captain America show. I didn't hear about most of this year.
He calls it the Black Captain America. You guys remember when I did my Captain America review and I start yelling, Captain America, he's black, it's woke. You guys remember that shit? Oh, man.
And I think that probably helped me a lot in this movie to not know the connective tissue that's going on within the Marvel Cinematic Universe at this point in time. I truly believe that I checked out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe after Endgame, which is the proper place to check out of it.
Yeah, that probably is the right place to get out of it.
I really just didn't care enough to try to follow all of these storylines and characters and intertwining everything. So I was watching this much in a vacuum. where I was just watching this story like I would watch a Guardians of the Galaxy movie.
And you should be able to watch a movie in a vacuum. You shouldn't have to know what all the other side projects are doing and how it's all connected. I think we should all universally agree it's time to end the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like, the connective tissue between all the movies, kill it. Get rid of it. Spider-Man's its own thing. Iron Man should be its own thing. And, you know, all these other franchises should be their own fucking movie set in their own universe. And that's the way going forward. We don't need to see movies that are about fucking the worst, like, D-level heroes you could think of. Has, like, a side story. We don't need to connect that to something that happened 15 years ago. We don't need it. We don't need it anymore. After Endgame, we just don't need it. Let's see.
The Galaxy movie. And I did. I ended up pretty much enjoying it. And I was sailing when I watched it. So I need to kind of see it in maybe IMAX. I'd love to see it in IMAX. So I didn't get the proper experience that I would like to. And that kind of goes into my expectations were just so incredibly low that I just really had no interest or desire to see this movie. And
well, you watched it anyway.
I ended up enjoying it. I thought the characters were good. The story is very generic and pretty stupid, but it's the characters that drive this forward. And you get to see superheroes.
So this does sound like one of these kind of movies that it's not really about the story, it's not really about the action or the humor or anything really, but it's just really about enjoying the dynamic between the individuals involved. Maybe I could get on board with that.
Doing superhero things at times, which I do appreciate, which is something we don't get in superhero movies anymore, or it's usually just cringe whenever we see it. But in this movie, it actually did work when it worked. It was pretty slow in the beginning, as I said over on Twitter when I made my tweet. It was very slow for the first...
Real talk, you guys.
So real, like, 20, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. But then
I don't know, man.
Once it gets rolling, the characters actually have really good...
It's gonna... If it's slow the first 20, 30, 40 minutes in a movie that's like 2 hours, or I don't even know how long it is, I don't know. When I'm already going in with low expectations, I don't think I'm going to see this movie. I don't think so. Maybe on streaming.
Chemistry, and I cared. I was interested enough because of these characters. Characters really are the backbone of this movie.
That's good.
There was good action scenes, there was good fight scenes and things like that. It does end abruptly, which kind of was jarring. And so that obviously was something that stuck with me in terms of just how jarring it was. But I enjoyed the movie. I really don't know where I could rank this in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because to me, I would never compare this to the MCU that started with Iron Man and ended with Endgame. I would never compare it, because there is no comparison whatsoever.
So it's good, he likes it in a vacuum, but when you compare it to the movies that were grander, the MCU, it doesn't hold a candle.
What you have is a very low bar that I've seen what they've done with the MCU since the end of Endgame with the MCU, where they've made it political propaganda, they've made it all about representation.
Yep.
I know that the Eternals saved a lot of lives, and I really appreciate that the movie Eternals, even though it was a flop and it was a disaster, and Marvel's probably never going to talk about it again, I appreciate that it saved so many lives out there. But I really have nothing to compare this movie to. I do believe, and I was just on Friday Night Tights with all of my friends, and it feels like the more involved in the MCU are from a knowledge standpoint, the worse this movie probably was, because of the frustration levels of all of that connective tissue.
Yeah, so it's almost like you're being punished for knowledge. Like, the more you know about the MCU, the deeper hole you dig almost when you watch this.
And I don't really have that problem because I do not know anything about the current MCU at all. All I know is that I watched this movie and I liked these characters. And I liked the journey that they went on. And I believed it. And I believed the ending of the movie and the title that they gave them and all of that. It just worked for me for what it was. Now, if you would have told me that this was part of the MCU back in the day, I don't think that this stands up like something should have back in the day.
Right.
This would have not stood up to something like a Guardians of the Galaxy or a Civil War or anything like that. But for what this was, I was fine with it. Now, the reaction has been pretty interesting because obviously Criticlist is the place that I spend more of my time looking at movie reviews and giving my movie reviews and my opinions. If you have not, I would highly recommend you go over and check that out. And right now, there's 28 reviews over there, and it's at 59%. Looks like Blaine has given it an 83%, who's the owner of Criticlist. I have not given my review yet. So 59% is not the worst thing ever, but it's certainly not great. You go over to Rotten Tomatoes, and you have an 89% 89% critic score, a 95% tomato or popcorn meter. You click on the 95%, and then you go to...
Wow, I mean, I figured, okay, maybe it would be like an 89% from the critics on Rotten Tomatoes, and then the audience score was like a 60. We see that quite often, where the critic score is high on a movie, and then the audience score is lower. Or the critic score is low and the audience score is higher. Typically, the audience score is higher on movies. I've seen that a ton. With like Red One, it would have a low critic score and the audience score was sky high. The only time you see it where the audience score, or the critic score is sky high and the audience score is low is when they're pushing a political propaganda bullshit movie. Which that does not appear this is.
You click on the 95%, and then you go to all audience, and the all audience is still at 95%, which was very shocking because the people that I follow on social media and things like that, I saw a lot of negativity with this movie from the people that I'm, friends with and that I follow. And I just don't share that negativity at all. I very much enjoyed this movie, and I don't apologize for that at all.
Okay.
It seems like the audience is on my side of this too, which I was very shocked at. I truly did not care about this movie at all. And going into it, I walked away enjoying it. Now, the box office numbers for Thunderbolts, it says that it's made $11.5 million on Thursday previews. It's now expected to gross $80 million at the domestic opening weekend. Now, we'll see how that ends up being. I mean, those aren't great numbers at all, but if we're to believe...
Ooh, man, I took a hit at the box office. That's not good for a Marvel movie. Estimated 80 million box office domestically. You're going to need at least triple that.
The word of mouth potential here. Top critics gave it a 90. All critics give it an 89. Verified audience gives it a 95. All audience gives it a...
You know how much of a shame it would be if this movie's actually as good as the audience says and as good as the critics say, but then people don't go out to see it because of the past Marvel failures? It happens.
95. Those are really, really strong numbers. Again, you go over here to Criticlist, and right now we're sitting at a 59%. I would probably, and the way that Criticlist aggregates their percentages is different than one of Rotten Tomatoes. So essentially, the 59% is just an average of the total scores that have been given, not an aggregate like Rotten Tomatoes says. So for me, I mean, I would probably give this movie like a 7 out of 10, 7.5 out of 10, which would be the equivalent of a 70 or a 75.
And that's what I feel going in. When I will go to watch a movie, bare minimum, for me to go watch it in theaters, I need to believe this movie is going to be an 8 out of 10 or higher, at minimum. So for me, when I look at Thunderbolts, at best, I see 7 out of 10. So that means a movie I'm willing to stream for a subscription service I already have, if it comes to that, which I don't have Disney Plus, so probably not. If it's a 7 out of 10, I'm willing to stream it, but I'm only willing to go to the movies for a movie I believe will be an 8 out of 10 or higher. An example of that is Final Destination Bloodlines, to me, looks like an 8 out of 10 movie. It looks funny, though, and I'm going to take the plunge and attempt it. Doesn't mean it's going to be an 8 out of 10. It could surprise me and become a 9. Or it could disappoint me and become a 7. Or it could be like Companion, where I'm pretty sure it's going to be a great movie. I go in, hate it, and think it's a 6. But there's nothing about Thunderbolts to me that says it's going to be anything above a 7 out of 10. It's hard ceiling, it feels like. And I could be wrong. Red One, I thought the same thing. I thought there's no way this is above a 7 out of 10. I watched that movie streaming. I was like, well, this is an 8 out of 10. I should have seen it in theaters. Whoops. But it's okay. It's okay. I still seen it. Anyway, guys, we went over Cody Leech, what he thought of the movie, a little bit of his positives, his negatives. We went over what Geeks and Gamers had to say about this movie. We got swerved. We got clickbaited. We thought maybe he was going to talk about it being woke. Then he actually turned out he liked the movie. Probably better than Cody did. You know what? We might go back to Cody for a little bit. So hold up.
For a character that has been, sporadically sprinkled throughout a number of these projects, almost like the evil Nick Fury, I don't think that there's enough going on with that character to really get me to care. Like I said, she's very reminiscent of Amanda Waller to a fault. And by the end of the film, I never really felt invested in her as this, villainous or morally complicated character where I want to see more of her either. She's just kind of a personality more than she is a character to me. And the only other issue that I have with the film, despite the runtime of this feeling very appropriate for this type of story, it did feel like a few things in the middle of the film were a little shortchanged. I don't know if things were cut or I don't know if they were done that way for dramatic effect, but more so with the villain of the film, there's a pretty big gap between where we see him at one point to where we meet up with him later on, that I want to know more about what happened in between there, because it's such a sudden, drastic change that I think it's probably intended so that you experience it along with the Thunderbolts of whoa, what the fuck happened to this guy? And it kind of works in that respect with the sequence that follows it. But I'm interested in the villain, so I guess maybe that's just me being greedy. I want to know more about what got him from point A to point B. Overall, guys,
less
I
is
had
more
a good time
sometimes.
with Thunderbolts. I do not think that it's top tier MCU. This is not going to be a mainstay in my top 5. As I said, I think there's been a lot of hyperbolic reactions of people that are just glad that there's a good MCU film out there. I think what's important to keep in mind with this one is that, yes, it's a good movie. I agree with that, but it's more so good in comparison to all the disappointment that we've had over the last number of years. I think if you drop Thunderbolts in the middle of phase 2 or 3, I think people would have a lot more realistic walking out reactions to it. But if you're somebody that's been really disappointed...
So Cody Leech gave it a 4 out of 5. See it in theaters. That's what I said. Me and him have a similar rating system. I say 8 out of 10. He says 4 out of 5. Same difference. If it's an 8 out of 10 or higher, or you think it's going to be, go see it in theaters. If you think it's going to be less than that, see it on streaming. Or even less than that, avoid it altogether. But he says see it in theaters. And I just got to say, I've seen a lot of movies recently. I saw Until Dawn. I saw Sinners. I saw Drop. I got Bloodlines coming up in a few weeks. Taking a break from the theaters for a few weeks. I don't think I'm going to go see this in theaters. I think that's my ultimate verdict. I don't think this movie is going to save the MCU, but it is a step in the right direction. Critics overall seem to love it, and the audience seems to love it. And when it comes to Cody and Jeremy, they seem to like it. Not love it, but like it.
Disappointed with how scattershot this universe has seemed, how unfocused it seemed, and you really want something to feel more like the good old days, I think the Thunderbolts is our first genuine step towards hopefully getting a lot more of that. Is Marvel...
Well, guys, that's the end of the video. Thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate it.
Back, we'll find out after we get 2 or 3 more movies that have the reception
We'll see.
this one does. But as of right now, Thunderbolts, solid, good time. Go check it out if you're an MCU fan. Well, that's it for this one, guys.
Well, at the end of the day, you, the viewer, will have to decide. Is this a movie you'd like to see? And if you do like this format of reacting to movie reviews, let me know in the comments. If not, we can do more Rotten Tomatoes readings. But until next time, guys, peace. I'm out. Have a good one. RJ, signing out.